Hello everyone, welcome back to another Doctor Who collection update. In this collection update I'm showing you all the lovely bits of Doctor Who merchandise I picked up in February and in March, which includes some wonderful birthday presents. So this is the birthday collection update for 2025 and there is a great selection of merchandise here. Pretty much all the areas of merchandise I collect, so that's Blu-rays, we've got Big Finish, books, comics and figures, so that's very exciting. And there's a lot of Third Doctor merchandise which makes my heart very happy. With him being my favourite Doctor. So yeah, March has been very much the month for me, getting a load of Third Doctor merchandise. So all praise to the Great One.
All praise to the Great One.
We love you, John Pertwee. But before we dive into the merchandise, if you're new around here, then please do consider hitting the subscribe button because it really does help the channel out. And if you like your Doctor Who merchandise, then please do leave a like because it helps the channel out and it'll be a great little birthday present. So please hit the like button. I'm not threatening you, that sounds very threatening, but please, it will make my heart very happy and be a great birthday present, so please, leave a like. Anyway, let's take a look at some Third Doctor merch, shall we? Kicking off this collection update with a Blu-ray, and that is a steelbook, which is The Savages, a First Doctor story. I know it's not Third Doctor, but we'll get there and there'll be a nice segue, hopefully, for it. So we have The Savages steelbook, the story where Stephen leaves the Doctor and becomes leader of a alien civilization. And I think The Savages is a tremendous story. I think that Ian Stuart Black is a very sort of modern writer with his ideas, you know, the Macra Terror and the war game, not the war games, the war machines feeling very contemporary. Me and Luke have done a review on this story and talking about the animation, and I think the animation, it's a weird one because I think that it gets the character animation wonderfully. I think it has Hartnell's mannerisms down to a T. But I think the environments just feel a little bit flat and the lighting doesn't really sort of enhance the story. I think there could have been a little bit more creative choices within this sort of animation. But yeah, the story still shines through that. But we'll go on to the Third Doctor now, which was the big main release of March, and that is Season 7, which was out on my birthday. So this was a great sort of birthday present for me. And it is my favourite Doctor Who season of all time. I think this is just such a tremendous one. I think when the collection range started, this is the one I was really excited to see them sort of do, really, and see how they can restore it, because I think that was the big sort of question mark hanging over this season, was how well can they restore this to Blu-ray. And I think that they've done the best they can. You know, Spearhead looks glorious as ever, and the Silurians, it's the best, you know, these stories are ever going to look. And yeah, it is a tremendous set and I really do love it. And I think, yeah, it's still one of my favourite seasons of all time. And yeah, it's just tremendous how this season looks. And yeah, I'm very, very happy to have this in the collection, having my favourite season on Blu-ray. Continuing the Doctor Who Season 7 theme, this is why I did Season 7 second in the Blu-ray section, is because of this bookazine, the Doctor Who Chronicles 1970. Now, if you haven't checked out the Doctor Who Chronicles, check them out. They are tremendous bookazines. They are wonderful at sort of distilling a year of Doctor Who in a magazine. It is tremendous. It covers, they are just so detailed, not only covering the stories, but sort of giving a sort of an overview of the season or that year. But, you know, what was happening, you know, in the sort of social commentary of the year of 1970, and sort of taking a look at sort of month by month what was happening in 1970 for Doctor Who, covering sort of the merchandise about the Pink Annual. Why is the Doctor Who 1971 Pink Annual rare? You find out in this magazine. I'm not going to spoil it. A little profile on, you know, some of the key players of that year in Doctor Who. It's just a really great sort of magazine, and I highly recommend it, you know, covering this sort of restoration of the Doctor Who Blu-ray for the collection. Yeah, it is just a real wonderful magazine. I highly recommend the Doctor Who Chronicles 1970, or just the Doctor Who Chronicles in general, because they're just a wonderful range. Doctor Who merchandise, what was being released in the 1970s was Doctor Who comics, and here we have one here. Now, this isn't from the 1970s, this is the 1990s reprint of some of those comics from TV Action and TV21. And this was a wonderful birthday present from my girlfriend, Mel. And what makes it even more special is, hopefully you can see, it says the 3rd of March, which is my birthday. I wasn't born in 1993, but this is close enough. And what makes it even more special is it's the Third Doctor's first ever comic. So that, as a massive Pertwee fan, makes me very, very happy. The comic itself, it's pretty wild, and it's the Third Doctor and the Brigadier versus a schoolboy who's been doing some science experiments and making people very feral, whether it be animals or their classmates, and Doctor Who has to stop sort of a invasion of schoolboys and, you know, feral children. It's absolutely wild. It's the 1970s. And yeah, it's a wild ride, these comics, but that led me to go down even more of a rabbit hole. So falling down the Doctor Who comic rabbit hole, Mel also picked up this other issue, which is the Fourth Doctor's first comic, and I love this cover art of the Fourth Doctor, Sarah Jane and Bessie. And this comic for the Fourth Doctor, what's it called? Deathflower. It feels very much like a proto sort of Seeds of Doom, because you've got sort of this sort of crinoid-esque sort of plant man there. It's pretty interesting. So yeah, this is the Fourth Doctor's first ever comic. So yeah, really nice piece of history, and I hope to do a video sort of looking at Doctor's first comics and sort of talking about their first appearance in comics. I just need to pick up a few more issues, and then I'll be able to sort of talk about the Doctor Who comics, or Doctor's debuts in comics, which I think will be quite a neat little video to do. The rabbit hole continued because after that I decided, well, I'm going to pick up some more, and I picked up the first issue, which contains some Third Doctor comics, because as being a massive Third Doctor fan, I want to try and experience all the Third Doctor content that there is. And I picked up this one, which contains the follow-up from Doctor Who and the Deathflower, so it's great to sort of complete that story. And then, being another Third Doctor fan, I picked up another Third Doctor one there, and I couldn't resist picking up this one, which is a Second Doctor Cyberman story, which, let me tell you, it's pretty wild, and it's kind of strange seeing the Second Doctor go up against sort of the 10th Planet style sort of Cybermen, and I think that it's quite a quirky comic because it's a Second Doctor, John and Gillian. And yeah, it's a bizarre one, but I think the Second Doctor comics are probably the most bizarre comics around, because you have the Second Doctor reuniting with Jamie, facing the Quarks, as we have sort of Quark mania in the comics. So yeah, that's pretty neat. So I've been picking up the classic comics. From comics to books now, another present from Mel, which was a Virgin Misadventure, Time of Your Life by Steve Lyons. Now this is the first book to feature Grant Markham, who appeared in Killing Ground, which is one of the best Virgin Misadventure books out there. So yeah, this is great to finally have this book in the collection and see where sort of Grant's story started. And Steve Lyons, like I say, what a great writer, and this is the penultimate Virgin Misadventure. I just need the Crystal Bucephalus, and then I will have a complete collection of the Virgin Misadventures, which will be very, very satisfying. So I'm still on the quest to find a decent copy of that for the collection. But continuing with Sixth Doctor love, I guess we're sort of taking a break from the Third Doctor for a minute. We have Grave Matter, a PDA book, and this book I've been really wanting to get for a long time. I've just, ever since I sort of saw the cover, I was like, oh, that sounds a bit of me, and the blurb sounds very, very cool. Yeah, I'm very excited to give this one a read, because yeah, I think this is going to be a real great sort of PDA book. And we have another Sixth Doctor PDA book, which is Instruments of Darkness. Now this is the last story in the Pale Man trilogy, which kick-started in Scales of Injustice, which is a Third Doctor Season 7 book. So it all ties back eventually to the Third Doctor, and it continued in Business Unusual and this book here. Now this book is very interesting for Big Finish fans, as it features the Sixth Doctor and Evelyn and Mel. So this is the only PDA book to feature Evelyn, so that's a really quite neat, and being a big fan of Big Finish, it's one I have to have for the collection. So yeah, that's great to have. Moving on to some more recent Doctor Who books. Now a new line of Doctor Who books kick-started in October, I believe, which is the Doctor Who Icons series. So we have Frida Kahlo and the Skull Children. This is the first bit of 13th Doctor merchandise since, Jodie's left, and yeah, I'm hoping to do a sort of video covering the Icon series, because I think that they are very much the sort of new equivalent of Doctor Who quick reads, and they're very much sort of the 1960s sensibilities of sort of to educate and give you enough sort of breadcrumbs to sort of learn about this historical figure, and it's told in sort of a new series sort of style of a pseudo-historical. So yeah, there will be a video covering the Icon range so far, and the second book in that series is Charles Darwin and the Silurian Survival. Yeah, I'm currently reading this one. Obviously this book caused a bit of a stir, because if you know your Big Finish, you'll know that Jonathan Morris basically did this story, Blood Tide, which is Charles Darwin and the Silurians, and this is the 10th Doctor and Charles Darwin and the Silurians, and that was my first ever Big Finish, so this has sort of intrigued me to see how it compares. But like I say, there will be a video covering both of these stories very soon, once I finish reading this. In March we saw our first Doctor Who action figure release for 2025, and that being the 3rd Doctor and Sonic Screwdriver Vortex Edition, seeing a new head sculpt for the 3rd Doctor, John Pertwee, reminiscent of his sort of early days of the 3rd Doctor in the Demon's costume, with the Crystal Kronos, his Sonic Screwdriver, a giant maggot, and the electroplated Sonic Screwdriver. I've done a full review on this set, so if you know my full thoughts on this set, then check out that review. But yeah, as a massive 3rd Doctor fan, this was a lovely little addition. On to the final bit of merchandise I'm going to show, and that is Susan's War, Grandfather Time. Now, this was when sort of Big Finish sort of split up a box set to make 2 releases, so this and Family Ties was going to be sort of, I guess, the second set of Susan's War, but they decided to split up the box set and make 2 releases and make it in sort of the standard sort of CD case. And yeah, you know what? I'm currently listening to Grandfather Time at the minute, and you know what? I'm really enjoying the sort of Last of the Carlids. I think that's a really interesting story. It's got this nice sort of 60s feel to it. Feels very much sort of a similar tone to what you get with the David Bradley First Doctor Adventures. Jonathan Carley is superb in it, as you would expect. And yeah, I think Grandfather Times, because I listened to that in preparation for this, just to see in case there was sort of a cliffhanger from that release to lead into Grandfather Time. There isn't. You can definitely tell that this was sort of meant to be one release as a package, and you know what, Family Ties was a pretty solid little release. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing this sort of set of stories. So yeah, I might do a review on Susan's War, just to sort of finish that off, just to say that we reviewed it. The next release, the 3rd Doctor returns in Doctor Who and the Brain Drain. This was marketed as his second ever adventure, so this title is a play on the old Doctor Who Target novels, you know, Doctor Who and the Cave Monsters, and this is Doctor Who and the Brain Drain. And this is the 7th 3rd Doctor sort of relaunch box set, but actually it's number 15, so rather fittingly it's a season 7 story and it's the 7th box set, so that's pretty neat. Me and Luke have done a review on this story. I think that marketing it as the second 3rd Doctor story doesn't really work for this story personally, but yeah, I think that this is probably the weakest of the 3rd Doctor season 7 adventures that Big Finish have done, but still a very solid listen. And then one of the big releases in February. I mean, February is kind of a quiet month for me for Big Finish, which is good because there's quite some heavy hitting months coming up soon. We have Call Me Master, Inner Demons. Now, I've listened to the first story in this set, which I think is a really interesting sort of character piece. You getting to know this master, and I think Sacha Dhawan, you can really tell that he's done his research and poured his heart into that, and that was really sort of interesting to sort of learn the mechanics of this master. I think if I was to compare it to another Big Finish Master series, I would say it's very much, in terms of tone, very similar to the Missy stuff. It's not very much like the War Master stuff, which is very dark and, you know, very twisted. This is sort of very light and fluffy, but it does have the odd sort of dark moment here and there within it. But yeah, hopefully we'll do a full review on this set once I've listened to the rest of the set, really. And continuing the Chris Chibnall theme, we have the Death and Life of River Song, Ace and Tegan. Now this seems like a very timey-wimey box set, I guess. When River Song's involved, you kind of expect that sort of to be a main sort of focus on this. So yeah, this seems like a bit like a regression for the River Song sort of stuff, because River Song Last Words felt like a very unique sort of set of stories with where it was taking River Song, whereas this just feels like a classic Diary of River Song box set really, but repackaged and rebranded as The Death and Life of River Song. I've not listened to this yet, so I could be completely wrong with what I'm saying, and this could be an absolute banger of a box set. But the big release for March in terms of big finish for me was Genesis of the Cybermen. Me and Luke have done a review on this one, and my goodness, I'm gonna say this now, this is my favourite big finish release of the year so far. I'm sure it could be overtaken with Hooklight and whatever else Big Finish have got in store, but so far this is my favourite release of the year. This release got a lot of scrutiny when it was first announced, because people were going, hang on, is this another Daleks Genesis of Terror? We've got this already in the form of spare parts, and I think that this release complements spare parts wonderfully if you're worried about that. And I think that it is just a real great story. One thing that I admire about Genesis for Cybermen, that it sort of goes back to the core mechanics of the Lost Stories range, but it's not trying to sort of fit into the timeline of Doctor Who with other stories, with the stories that replace them. You know, like Deathworld sort of manages to sort of link so the three Doctors can exist as well. This is very much its own entity, it's its own curio piece, and I love it for it, and it's a great sort of representation of the season 19 TARDIS crew, how dysfunctional they are and how they just sort of blunder into these things. And yeah, great character work for Peter Davison's Fifth Doctor, Adric, and especially Nyssa. That is a real highlight, I would say. And then the last big finish, we have the Fourth Doctor Adventures, the Hellwood Inheritance, part of series 14 of the Fourth Doctor Adventures. I'm currently listening to the Hellwood Inheritance, which is a ghost safari park, and yeah, very strong part 1. Part 2 is a little sort of, I think with the Hellwood Inheritance it burned through its ideas very quickly, but I have to say part 3 is pulling me back into the story. Part 2 was a bit of a lull after such a strong part 1, because you know, part 1 just feels very quintessential Tom Baker era stuff, and I think part 3's going back in that direction, which I am a big fan of. So yeah, we have the Hellwood Inheritance there. There we have it. That has been my Doctor Who birthday collection update for March 2025. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please do like and subscribe for plenty more Doctor related content coming up in the near future, and I'll see you next time. So thank you and goodbye.